Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to our Sunday Fun Day from Courtroom Confidential, your fastest growing true crime news channel. Thank you guys so much for being here. I feel like it's been a while. It's not been that long, but it does feel like it's been a while, and I've been looking forward to this. Sunday Fun Day has become one of my favorite things that we do on this channel. As I know it is for a lot of you. So thank you everyone so much for being here. Hello to Afton and Janelle and Becky B and Diane Riley, Christina J, Shy Gal, Christy G, Andrea. Thank you guys so much for being here. Always appreciate all the support. Always appreciate all the enthusiasm on a Sunday morning. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. Thank you so much for all your support. For those of you who are new, let me introduce myself. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I am now in private practice as a criminal defense attorney, and this is Courtroom Confidential, where we try our very best to present to you both sides of the courtroom. And this is Sunday Fun Day, where we have taken your voicemails throughout the week, and we're going to answer them live now for all of you. We'll talk more at the end about where you can leave a voice message if you want to participate in all of this, but many of you have, and we appreciate that. Stay tuned to the very end for comments, or for, pardon me, announcements. We do have actually some interesting stuff coming up and some changes. So I want you to stick around because I want you to know about the new schedule that we have, that we're reworking and retooling things a little bit, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So stick around. Let's get into these messages. You guys absolutely came through. Arizona Gal, as always, kicking us off. Sunday Fun Day, best day ever. Hello, CC fam. Sending love. Thank you so much, Arizona Gal. Sending love right back at you. All right, let's see who gets us started this morning, shall we?
Hi, Josh. This is Lou from Dallas, Texas. And I'm calling today to ask, is it a universal rule in the U.S. courts that jurors are free to discuss a case once the trial is over? And if so, do you think courts may eventually put some parameters around this, given that jurors can now immediately go to TikTok blogs or live streams to share their trial experiences? I'm just used to in the past when jurors who spoke publicly about their experience, they usually did it in a more formal setting, like interviews on Dateline or 2020. And the interview was conducted by this seasoned professional that was more serious and structured in asking the questions and kind of, guiding the whole process of sharing that information. But today it just seems more casual and sometimes it has more of a playful tone um, because of social media. And I'm particularly talking about the Donna Adelson trial, where the jury foreperson was the first person to kind of come out. And she was very light and airy and playful about this really big major decision in her TikTok. And so to me, it seems to raise the risk for undermining these verdicts or fueling appeals. And I feel so bad for Georgia and the district attorney's office for all of the years, and the FBI and the detectives, and the Markel family who has sat through so many of these trials, that something like this could undermine, all of this work that was put into, really diligent and all of this due diligence and all of the hard work gone into this can now possibly, be swept away, with a new trial and maybe a different verdict. And so I just wonder, do you think that because of this, because nobody anticipated, social media and different things like this. And so do you think that this can shift how jurors share their post-trial experiences, or how the court, allows this to happen? Um, because I think it can become a game changer for prosecutors and courts and families going through, these terrible trials and experiences like this. So thank you again for the opportunity to allow us to ask questions, and love your show. And just thank you.
Lou from Dallas, Texas, thank you so much for kicking us off. What a great question. Let's put Dallas on the map, first of all. And this is a question that I have personally been wondering a lot about and thinking a lot about myself. And I can tell by watching the comments that a lot of you feel the same. It does seem, and I haven't done a study on this. I don't know if there has been a study done on this. I would love for someone to do that, not myself. But I would love to know if statistically it is true that jurors just seem to be talking more after trials. It used to seem like years ago, a trial would finish maybe on a very, very, very high profile case. You might get a juror or two who would do an interview with Dateline or sit down with the Today Show or something like that. That was pretty salacious even. Maybe they would get a book deal on an incredible trial. I remember OJ was one of those cases. But it does seem that recently a lot of jurors are coming forward. And I think part of that has to do with the easy access to places like YouTube and TikTok and Twitter, where they can just put their voice out there and thousands of people can see it rather than having to, book an appearance on Dateline or something. So I think that's part of it. But I think there also is some sort of trend. And again, this is just my anecdotal observations where people seem to be much more free to talk about these things, and they want to talk about them, and they want to share their feelings. So Lou's question is this allowed? Is there anything wrong with it? Should we be concerned with it? Is this a trend that we want to encourage or discourage? First of all, it's absolutely allowed. I mean, even the judges say to jurors, you are now released from your duty. You are free to discuss this case. You are free to speak to the media. You are free to speak to the attorneys. You're free to speak to whoever you want about it. They have their full First Amendment rights. There is nothing about a trial that prevents them, that there's some sort of secret aspect to it that they're not allowed to talk about. They're allowed to talk about their deliberations, what they discussed in the deliberating room. And that's where we'll talk about in a minute. Things start to get really hairy. But they're allowed to do exactly what this juror did in the Donna Adelson case. This juror took to TikTok and shared her thoughts freely. Part of that is a good thing. Part of that, it demonstrates just what an open and transparent system we have, that there is nothing being hidden from the public. You imagine what it would seem like if jurors were put under some sort of permanent gag order, or even a gag order that lasted, a few years after the trial concluded. We would all be thinking to ourselves, what is there to hide? Why can't we learn this information? So a part of me applauds it, encourages it. But there's the other part of me, the lawyer part of me, the prosecutor part of me that gets really nervous about this, because jurors can even unintentionally stumble into saying things that might cause issues. If they start to talk about, back in the deliberation room, we were at a real impasse. So we just decided, you know what? Let's flip a coin. Or, you know what? Let's arm wrestle over it. I don't know. I mean, you hope that ridiculous things like that don't take place. But if they did start saying something like that, it could upend an entire trial. Absolutely. Or if they start saying things like the little bit of squirrely behavior that was discussed in the Donna Adelson case was with this one juror who went on our friend's show, STS, with Joel. This juror here, juror number 5, I believe it was. And he referenced how he was impacted by Donna Adelson's reaction to the verdict. And her attorneys kind of took that and ran with it and said, well, jurors were considering her behavior in court. That's not exactly what that juror said. And Judge Everett really didn't play into any of those arguments, but you can see where their comments are being microanalyzed by defense attorneys afterwards. So I don't know the answer to the question on how do we solve it. I think that the way that we solve it is that we encourage jurors to go ahead and speak to whoever they want to, but just be mindful of their words are being watched very closely. But it's a weird kind of fascinating time that I think that we're living in. And I appreciate the question, Lou, because I've been thinking about that a lot myself. So thank you so much, Lou, for kicking us off. And let's get to our next question here. Let's keep it rolling.
Hey Josh, this is Lori LaSalle. I met you at CrimeCon. I go with the moniker of La Sal, and I am from Wyoming. I have no question. I just think you do a great job. So does Tiff, Kaylin, and all your mods. I just wanted to represent Wyoming. I know I'm on your map for CrimeCon. I think there was one other person. So I called in to represent. Love ya.
I got no quarrel with that, Lori. Representing Wyoming. Let's put Wyoming on the map. There we go. Let's zoom out because I think Wyoming is one of the states where we were like, yeah. Oh, you're the first one. Look at you, Lori, putting Wyoming on the map. Appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the thank yous. Always appreciate hearing from different states and how this show is affecting and touching people, and it really encourages us to keep going. So thank you so much. Let's keep it rolling here.
Good morning, Josh. Happy Sunday Fun Day. Carolyn from Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I just finished listening to last week's Sunday Fun Day, and you had mentioned jury misbehavior. Can't think of the correct word. Wanted to share a quick experience. Wondered if you've ever encountered this. I've been attending a local trial here in Douglas County, where the judge abruptly stopped the prosecutor, asked the jury to leave, and then proceeded to get very angry at a man who was sitting in the trial, accused him of making faces and uttering things under his breath. Turns out it was the defendant's father, and the defendant's ex-boyfriend was testifying at the time. So the judge asked him to leave and told him he could not come back. He could not attend any other day of the trial. He could watch it on live stream, but that was it. And it was very interesting. So I wondered if you have ever encountered something like this with somebody who was in attendance of the trial. He accused him of not jury tampering, but anyway, it was something a little different. So very interesting. By the way, I travel to Utah often to see my 95-year-old dad, and I drive through Wyoming. So I'm going to stop and make a Sunday Fun Day call so we can get Wyoming on the map. Thanks, Josh.
Carolyn from Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I think you missed it. I think you missed the Wyoming opportunity by just one question, Carolyn, but we appreciate that. Did I call out Wyoming? Is that what happened? I think I mentioned how we didn't have anybody from Wyoming. So thank you everybody for trying to make that happen. Now we got to figure out where else are we missing. Have we ever done Alaska? I feel like we haven't had any. Kaylin's telling me no. Look at poor Alaska up there. All right, there's the challenge. Anybody listening from Alaska, give us a call, leave us a question, put Alaska on the map. We've done Hawaii, right? And not Hawaii. All right, so it looks like we've covered the continental US. Now we need to broaden our borders a bit. All right. But anyhow, Carolyn is from Highlands Ranch, Colorado. So let's give some love to Highlands Ranch, Colorado before we move on. And you asked the question of, have I ever, and I think the term you were looking for was witness intimidation. Have I ever experienced that taking place during a trial? And the answer to that is absolutely, and many times. Many might be too much. But when I was in the prosecutor's office, I used to handle a lot of gang cases, and gang cases experience that all the time. You will have, you'll do trials to empty courtrooms, and then all of a sudden you're doing the trial with a heavy gang involvement, especially where you're perhaps having rival gang members testify against each other, which they do not like to do because snitches get stitches. But where you are able to convince them that they need to come in and testify, or you threaten with locking them up if they don't come in and testify, you'll all of a sudden have a lot of people in the courtroom, a lot of people interested in watching this trial for some reason. And they all sit in the back and they all look like really mean dudes. And for the most part, the judge will not kick them out if they're just sitting there and behaving themselves. But I've had situations where they're mouthing words to somebody and the judge or the bailiff gets a view of it. I've had it where they're flashing signs, gang signs, subtly at somebody who's testifying. The other one that used to take place is there are many gangs who shave their heads and then tattoo their heads fully with whatever gang symbols that they have. You'll see gangs with a guy with a shaved head and he's got a big 18 on his head for 18th Street. Or there was one gang that we used to deal with. I forget the name of it, but they would tattoo horns, devil horns on their head. So it could be as simple as somebody walking into court with their bald head, making sure that everybody testifying sees it. And to the extent that I've seen judges and bailiffs kick people out of the room, I've even seen them arrest people inside of the courthouse. I've seen the judge stop the proceedings. The bailiffs are standing by the door so nobody can get out. He moves the jurors out of the room and they make arrests right in the courtroom for things like witness intimidation. So it is something that's taken very seriously. And it's something that can be, listen, these people, like I said, don't want to testify. They know the consequences for testifying in these certain types of cases, and they're worried about it. And they, you're doing the best that you can to get them up there on the stand to begin with. And then they start getting threats in court, and then their testimony starts changing, and then you have to kind of rehabilitate them. You treat them as we've all heard the term a hostile witness. You're basically impeaching your own witness, something I've had to do many times. Yeah, gang cases are the Wild West. So thank you for that question, Carolyn from Highland Ranch. But I'm glad that you got to see a little bit of that in the case that you were observing in court. And there it is. There's Highland Ranch, just so you made sure that we got your proper representation. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hello, Josh. Hello, everybody. On a Sunday, this is Susan. I'm visiting Townsend, Delaware, and I'm from Three Forks, Montana. Going back home soon in October. Just wanted to say thanks, Josh, and everybody, for such a great podcast. Appreciate all your insights. Everybody have a great day.
Oh, Suzanne, thank you so much. That's so kind and sweet of you just to call in to say thank you. I'm going to make an official executive decision here on jurisdiction when it comes to callers. I say the call where you get the dot on the map has to do with where you live. I know a lot of people will say, I'm originally from here, but now I'm living here, or I'm visiting here while I'm making this call. I think we have to make an official decision, Kaylin and Tiff. You guys weigh in on this, everybody, but I think the dot has to do with where you are living at that time, not where you're calling from. What do you guys think? Well, you can go ahead and vote all you want, but Tiffany says yes. Tiffany says yes. All right. So with that in mind, we're putting Three Forks, Montana on the map. Thank you so much, Susan, for the kind words, and thank you for calling in. Let's see where else we land today. Uh-oh, I got to remove. There we go.
Hi, Joshua. This is Maria from Denver. And my question has to do with how defense attorneys who are defending somebody they know is guilty, how can they sleep at night? Thank you.
Maria from Denver, Colorado, with the $1 million question. I get this question all the time. I get it on Sunday Fun Day. I get it in my personal life when I run into people, when they find out what I do for a living. It's always like, how can you defend a guilty person? I'm going to fill you guys in on something. Most people that I speak with are guilty of something. Okay. If it were the situation where all the clients who walked through my door were innocent people charged by the government who'd had nothing to do with it, we would be living in very awful times. Most people who are charged with a crime and arrested were up to something. Now, maybe that's going to offend a lot of my defense attorney subscribers who I don't even know if I have any. Maybe that'll offend some of my colleagues, but I think they'd all have to agree with it, that somebody walks through your door, they give you a call, it's usually the rarest of rare occurrences where it's like, I did not do this thing. They've got the wrong person. It's usually more along the lines of what they're accusing me of, I didn't do, but I did this thing. Now, to answer your question, when that person walks through my door and I know that they are responsible for something, but maybe not what they're charged with, or maybe even what they're charged with, how do I represent them? That's my whole job. That's the whole job. The whole job description is defending people, regardless of your personal understanding of their level of guilt or not. A law professor of mine explained it, I think, best. We are all in the career, the calling, whatever it is. We're all in the field of law enforcement. If you're a prosecutor, you're trying to enforce the criminal laws, the penal code. If you're a defense attorney, you're trying to enforce the Constitution. And that's what my job is to enforce the Constitution, to hold the government to the standard of making sure that they didn't run ramshod all over my clients' rights, and to make sure if they go to trial that they are represented and that their rights are protected and that the arguments are made and that they are guaranteed by the Constitution to zealous advocacy, and that I'm doing my job. Now, as a private defense attorney, that doesn't mean that I have to take every single case that walks through the door. And are there some cases that I don't want to get involved in because of the complexity of it, the subject matter of it, my relationship with that person? I mean, this is a person I'm going to have to live with for a long time. Sometimes I just feel like we don't get along on a personal level. And I say, I'm not the best person for you. I know how much work it's going to require for me to put in to defend you. And I think you need to probably find somebody else who believes in your cause a little bit more than I do. But excellent question, Maria. But that's the whole job, is you're standing there defending people who've been accused of something, and you are supposed to do as zealous a job as you can, regardless of what you may feel about their level of culpability. But I appreciate you asking, Maria. All right, let's keep it moving here.
Hi, Josh. This is Linda Wolf in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And my question for this Sunday Fun Day is, if Wendi Adelson does get convicted as a co-conspirator, who will get her children? Hopefully his family and not hers. Just a thought I've had. Thank you. Have a great Sunday Fun Day, everyone. Please put Colorado Springs, Colorado on the map. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Linda from Colorado Springs, Colorado. And absolutely, we're putting you on the map. Thank you so much for calling in. A lot of people have been thinking about this one. You know, the victims that I feel don't get discussed enough in this case are those kids. You imagine what they've gone through. Their father is killed at a very young age. Then their uncle goes to prison for the rest of his life. Now their grandmother is going to prison for the rest of her life. And their mother may get indicted. And that is what they've experienced over the last 10 years of their life. That is tragedy upon tragedy, in my view. These poor kids. And then, by the way, who knows how much they know about all of this? Who knows how much they're being told about all of this? Who knows how much their friends at school have told them about all of this? I don't know. But one day they're going to be old enough to access the internet, and they're going to Google Dan Markel and Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson and perhaps even mom, and realize the nightmare that was their childhood. And I think that's a true tragedy. And if Wendi is indicted, arrested, and convicted, I applaud that, because if she was involved, that deserves to happen, regardless of what that means for those two young boys, and they're not all that young now. But that will leave them without parents. What an awful thing. They didn't do anything. They're innocent in all of this. Truly, truly innocent. The answer is, yeah, they will likely go to the Markel family because of the involvement in criminal activity of the entire Adelson family. And in fact, interestingly enough, Florida passed a law in 2022. This is House Bill 1119, which is referred to in Florida as the Markel Act. And what it essentially does is it creates a right for grandparents to petition for visitation when the living parent has been held responsible for the death of the other parent. So in other words, this situation isn't arising right now for the Markels. Ruth and Phil, by the way, are the names of Dan's mother and father, Ruth and Phil Markel. There they are. But if Wendi is arrested, this law would come into effect. It would allow them petition for at least visitation and perhaps other custodial rights if she's implicated. And by the way, even if she's not criminally implicated, if she's sued and found civilly responsible, this can give them rights, because my understanding is they've been completely cut out of those children's lives. And that, again, compounds the tragedy, in my view, that you've taken away these kids' father, uncle. The other uncle, by the way, wants nothing to do with the family, so he's not in the picture. Who knows how much grandfather is involved in? Grandmother's now going off to prison. And then you remove their grandparents from the other side, who obviously love and adore them as well. It's just the selfishness and the lack of love, I think it is, towards these kids that has been demonstrated by this family is remarkable to me. So thank you so much, Linda from Colorado Springs, for bringing up that question and giving us an opportunity to discuss that law. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Josh. I'm Carolyn from Whitefish, Montana. I'm a longtime listener. I first found you through Surviving the Survivor. I absolutely love your show and all that you do. You do absolutely amazing work. Because of you, I have a newfound appreciation for the law, Constitution, and I absolutely love watching criminal trials. I have learned so much. It's absolutely amazing. I have two questions for you. After someone graduates law school and passes their bar exam, what's the usual protocol? Do they immediately become an attorney, or do they start out as a law clerk? I'm a little fuzzy on that. My second question is, as a criminal defense attorney, how is full payment guaranteed from a defendant if they're convicted? I know obviously there's a contract drawn up, but I've always been curious by that, because I would figure they're not in the paying mood if they've been convicted. So anyways, again, I appreciate everything you do. CC crew, you're the best. Thank you.
Oh, Carolyn, that's so sweet of you to say. I love these types of comments that are things like, I'm learning so much. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that we're here for that. First of all, let's put Whitefish, Montana on the map. There we go. Is that our second dot there in Whitefish, or close by? I don't know. Looks like it. Oh, look at that. Very cool. You guys should get together. You guys should plan a play date, whoever the two of you are. Carolyn's one of you. Anyhow, great question. Something I didn't see coming. What happens after law school? Do you immediately become a lawyer? The answer is, well, after law school, you immediately become a law school grad. So you have your JD, right? But then you've got to do something and sit for this little test called the bar exam, which is quite the undertaking. And I will tell you this, you go to 3 years of law school, and I feel like all that you learn in that 3 years is a language. You learn the language of the law. You learn, what is negligence? What is culpability? What is corroboration? What is hearsay? You learn this, like I said, it probably the best way to think about it is that way. It's like you've gone to 3 years of Mandarin Chinese, okay? You come out somewhat fluent in this new language. But then when you sit for the bar, it's like you're learning the law all over again. And I remember you go to these bar prep courses, and I felt like for the first time, I'm learning some of these subjects, because when it's discussed in law school, it's kind of done in this very philosophical, let's look at case law, and let's look at how did the idea of murder develop over centuries, and where did it come from historically, and why is it punished, and blah, 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 blah. You go to your bar prep course, and it tells you murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. Boom, 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 boom. There's the elements. There's everything you need to know. And so it's like you're learning it all over again, but now you have this language to understand it. Hope that makes sense. But to answer your question, Carolyn, you graduate law school, you're now a JD. You can't do much with that. But with that JD, you can sit for the bar exam. So you sit for the bar exam. When I took the bar exam in California, it was 3 days long. 6 hours a day, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon for 3 days in a row. It's brutal. Now they've reduced it to 2. So these modern day attorneys are only 2/3 of the attorney, in my view. And once you've passed the bar exam, which is no small undertaking, then you are approved by that state to be a lawyer. And what can you do? You can do everything, which is shocking. You can handle DUIs. You can handle murders. You can handle drafting wills. You can sue corporations. You can do everything any lawyer can do. We hear about this term, especially in the Tyler Robinson case recently, about the new attorneys being death penalty qualified. That is only, by the way, for state-appointed attorneys. In other words, the state is not going to pay to appoint an attorney unless that attorney is death penalty qualified. But if that family went out and raised their own funds, they can hire whatever lawyer they want. As long as they are able to practice law in the state of Utah, there is no special designation to be able to handle a death penalty case. So they could hire some kid straight out of law school if they wanted to. They're not going to, and they don't want to, but I'm just saying that's the incredible thing. It's like you graduate from medical school and being able to, be a podiatrist, a gynecologist, and a ear, nose, and throat doctor all on the same day if you wanted to. Just next time you're considering your lawyers, consider their experience. And then your next question, I also love, how do you collect your money? Most defense attorneys take the fee up front. And that's why it can be a very expensive undertaking, because those attorneys know that's probably the last dollars they're ever seeing from that person. Because you're right, people's motivation to pay their bills when they're in prison seem to drop precipitously. So most attorneys, defense attorneys, will take a flat fee up front. You're charged with murder. I expect X amount of dollars for me to handle your case, soup to nuts. So that's to handle everything if this goes to trial. And then I have people say to me, well, I'm paying you all this money. What if you are able to settle this thing tomorrow? And I go, well, then that's the best money you ever spent, isn't it? Do you want me to drag this out? Do you want me to make your life miserable for the next 6 months of dragging this out to court, or do you want me to handle it tomorrow? And if you do you expect the price to be different? So there you go. Great question, Carolyn from Whitefish. Appreciate that. All right. Am I missing any of our questions here? I am in Whitefish. She's in Columbia Falls. Oh, okay. Oh, and you are friends. Oh, I love that. How cool. Shell I don't know why that tickles me so much. That's great. Seashell AZ, thank you so much for gifting the membership. Appreciate you and appreciate you contributing. Teresa Clay for gifting a membership. Welcome aboard, everybody who received those memberships. Racer Girl became a YouTube member. Appreciate you, Racer Girl. That's so cool. See that? Making friendships happen here in Courtroom Confidential. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hello, my name is Cynthia, and I live in St. George, Utah. I have a question regarding the Tyler Robinson case. I understand that we're legally presumed innocent until proven otherwise, but what effect does his voluntary surrender potentially have on his defense and or the prosecution? Thank you.
Cynthia, St. George, Utah. Let's put it on the map there. Where is St. George? I feel like I haven't. That's you. You're smack dab in the. Oh, wait a minute. You're near the border of I can't tell and I can't tell. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. St. George. I know where St. George is. St. George is where he was arrested, I think. Tyler Robinson was arrested way to South Utah. I think I'm right on that. I think he was arrested in St. George, but then they're bringing him back to Provo for the trial. I think I'm right. But thank you, Cynthia, for calling in. No wonder you have a question about Tyler Robinson. The answer to your question, Cynthia, what effect does his voluntary surrender have on his case? And the answer is zero. Zero effect whatsoever. In fact, jurors will never learn of it. Likely. There's a small chance that somehow it becomes relevant or somehow some witness talks about it. But the idea that the prosecution or the defense would ever try to argue that is near impossible. And here's the reason why, in particular for the prosecution. Like your invocation of your Miranda rights, these things are seen as especially when it comes to your Miranda rights, the idea that you are exercising a right cannot be a two-edged sword. So used to protect you, but then also used against you. So when when police go to speak to someone and they say, I plead, I want my attorney and I don't want to talk and I'm using my Fifth Amendment right to stay silent. You can never call that detective to the stand and say, did you attempt to interview the defendant? Yes, I did. And what happened? Well, he said he didn't want to speak to me. That immediate mistrial. Immediate. If the judge had a mistrial button, he'd hit it. Big time no. Even asking the question, did you attempt to, is huge, big time no. It's just not discussed. The idea is just, we don't talk about that. The only time it becomes relevant is if that defendant takes the stand and says, I wanted to tell my story. I was trying to tell my story. Nobody would give me an opportunity to tell my story. Then you can impeach them with, well, didn't the detectives go to try to talk to you and you didn't want to talk, right? Or they're saying something like, this was a rush to judgment. They never wanted my side of things, something like that. That could open up the door. And the same would go for this voluntary surrender. You cannot, ask for someone to peacefully come in and surrender themselves and then use that against them as some sort of implication of guilt. The person knew they were being looked for would be the argument. And rather than requiring police to come out with guns drawn and arrest them, they came in and turned themselves in. It is not, I know where you're going with it, Cynthia. Isn't that an admission of guilt in and of itself that he turned himself in? I get it. I understand it. Not going to be used against him. But great question. And I think I'm right. Did anybody confirm that I'm right about St. George? Yes. Okay, good. Now I feel much better and we can move on with our day. All right. Great questions, guys. Loving these so far. Let's keep it rolling. Oops. Hold on. Forrest Nelson. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Share so others find the channel. Hit the like to direct others and comment in the chat or comment section. All these things help and they are all free. Just do it. Forrest, you are hired. Look at that well-articulated argument. I defy you to find a flaw in Forrest's argument. Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind super chat. And yeah, listen up, everybody. Share, subscribe, share, like, and comment. We're all free to do, and you'll enjoy it. You'll have a good time. And Forrest told you to. So thank you for that. All right. There we go.
Hi, Josh, Tiff, brilliant mods, and of course the chat. Thank you for all your great streams and legal analysis. Just being gifted a membership by the lovely Kathy on her birthday. My question is there a CrimeCon in the UK, and would you guys come? Take care. See you later. Bye.
Little Miss, I don't think you said your name, but your moniker is Little Miss Red Velvet, calling in from the UK. Please call again, give us your name, and tell us where exactly you're from in the UK. An excellent question. Is there a CrimeCon in the UK? No, there's not. There's two, in fact. CrimeCon is coming to England. It has come before, but in 2026 alone, they have both CrimeCon events in Birmingham and London. What I'm unclear about, and I should have looked into, are those on the same date? Do we know, Kaylin? Is it like dual CrimeCons taking place at the same time, or are they different dates in different locations? I don't know. And I know Kaylin is scrambling around on the computers to figure it out right now. She's going to let us all know. But isn't that cool? So expect to see you there, Little Miss Red Velvet. And if you want us there, I don't know, request somebody. I'd fly out there. Tiff, would you fly out there? We'd pack up our little brood, our tribe, and fly out to England to go to CrimeCon if they wanted us there. Birmingham, there you go, is April 25th. And London is October 3rd and 4th. So 2 opportunities to go to England. Birmingham needs to get themselves another day. That's unfortunate. So if you're listening, Little Miss Red Velvet, or anybody who's in the UK, there's a lot of love out there for CrimeCon. I know that Joseph Scott Morgan from the Body Bags podcast, and a big friend of this show, and we're a friend of his, he goes to CrimeCon in the UK all the time. There's also a CrimeCon cruise, says Beautiful Messy Ball. That's true. And Joseph tells me, thank you for that, Beautiful Messy Ball. Joseph tells me that he actually likes the CrimeCon in the UK a little bit better because it's not as big. It's a little bit smaller. So he says there's more opportunity to interact with folks and share stories and talk. So what do you think, Tiff? Should we pack up our bags, make sure our passports are up to date, and that I still have mine? Yes, I do. I was in New York this last week, and I still have my passport. So thank you for all your concern, everybody. But yeah, I don't know. If there's a way to let CrimeCon know that you would like Courtroom Confidential there, please let them know, and we will do our best to be there. But great question, Little Miss Red Velvet. Oh, I am here. My name is Gil from Manchester. Forgot I called. Love it. Gil from Manchester. That's not that all that far from Birmingham, I don't think. Let's tell us all about it when you go. Maybe we'll meet you there. I don't know. Stay tuned. All right. I can tell I'm giving Tiffany cold sweats with the idea of packing up all her kids and going to England. I think we should do it. All right. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Josh, Granny Detective here. As always, great to watch all your shows this last week, and I'm hoping you had a chance to review the Jeff Spence mistrial that happened this week and can explain where you think this one went off the tracks. Was it the mother and the daughter both got off with plea deals, and the other daughter that did testify in her father's case was really not, and I'm not trying to throw her under the bus, but she was ill prepared for the type of questions she was going to get and how to respond, and caused, I think, which is part of the reason why there was a mistrial, or was it just the jury just didn't get it? Anyway, Josh, I would be so happy if you would try and give an explanation of where this went off the rails. Anyway, love the show. Listen to you every week. So talk to you soon. Bye.
Granny Detective, appreciate you. Appreciate all your support. Calling from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Let's put that on the map. I'm going to be honest with you. We've been so busy, and there's so many cases that we're covering that every once in a while, one of them slips through the cracks, and this was one of them. And I feel bad about that. So I am not any kind of expert on the Jeffrey Spence case. I don't know if I'm an expert on any case, but this case I was not able to put enough attention into, and that's unfortunate because it does sound fascinating. Here's what I know. I know that he is accused of killing his son-in-law, Kirby Carpenter. And if I get these wrong, let me know. And this happened in Tippah County, Mississippi on November 30th of 2022. Spence is from Virginia. And I know that part of this case was that his alibi was he wasn't even anywhere in the state. He was in Virginia, and that his defense made the argument that, in fact, they could prove he was in Virginia, hours away, nowhere near Mississippi where this murder took place. But apparently part of that was that he made a confession to his daughter that he did this, along with Kirby Carpenter, the victim, dealt in gold coins and bars. And when Spence was arrested, he was found with $65,000 worth of gold coins on him. Now, gold coins, I don't think are traceable in the sense of having serial numbers, so you know who those belong to, but certainly evidence of perhaps motivation for why this murder was committed. But it hung, and it didn't just hang. It was a complete split verdict, 6-6. Jurors came out saying they're hung 6-6. After just a few hours, judge said, go back in there and do some more work. And they came back not too long later and said, there's no changing this. We are split, and we are split as hard as it can get. And they were split, by the way, not on, first degree, second degree, but on murder and acquittal. So that's pretty incredible to me. And that shows something about this case was problematic, certainly for the prosecution, because, one or two jurors just don't get it. I understand that. Half of your jurors are not convinced. That's a problem with your case. And therapist, says it was a thin case. There you go. So I have not watched it. I'm not an expert on it, but our good friend Gavin Fish, I know, did follow it, has followed it closely. I encourage you guys, if you want to learn more about it, to go to his channel and check it out. Tell him we said hi. Send him some juice boxes. And maybe we'll even have him on. Maybe we should have him on to talk about this case, because it is going to be retried. Okay, apparently the prosecution has already indicated that they expect to retry this case sometime next year. What I will say is this, and I tell my clients this, and I tell victims this when I was a prosecutor. Jury trials are no given. I don't care how strong you feel your case is, how weak you feel your case is, the results can sometimes surprise you. Now, does that mean it's a total crapshoot? No. I mean, obviously there are cases where you go into it as a prosecutor feeling incredibly confident. You've got all the witnesses, you've got everything lined up, and it's usually a result that you can expect. But I've been surprised. I've been surprised by hung juries. I've been surprised by acquittals. Not many of them, thankfully, but it happens. Jurors get back there, and I don't care how long you talk to them about following the law and doing the right thing. They get back there and they just decide to do their own thing sometimes. I will say the prosecution has indicated they wish to retry this case. We'll see if they're able to get better results. I will tell you, if they can't get a good result the next time around, though, you might not be looking at a retrial, because even with allegations this serious, if you can't get a better than 6-6 split, that's some sort of indication that there's a fundamental problem with your case. Unless you're like, I wasn't able to get this witness in, and that changes the case. I know that in my office, you would have a hard time convincing your supervisors on a case like this. Like, what can you do different to change this? Anyhow, great question, Granny Detective. Always appreciate hearing from you. Let's keep it rolling. Not my fault. I'm doing everything right, pressing all the right buttons.
Hey Josh, it's Farm Girl from Ohio. Hey, just wanted to say thank you for covering the Aaron Spencer case. My question is, if you could put on your defense attorney hat, pretend you are his defense attorney, and this thing makes it all the way to trial, can you give us a little taste of what your opening statement might be? Thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Farm Girl, calling in from Ohio. Let's put you on the map. Always good to hear from you. Always appreciate all your support. Always makes me smile to see your name in the chat, and I hope you're here this morning. Aaron Spencer, this case, I'll tell you what, there's not many defense attorneys I know who wouldn't happily take this case. You talk about, even as a private attorney, you can kind of pick and choose your clients. This is one that I would happily take, and this is one that I would happily stand next to that person and defend them. And it goes back to the question we were talking about earlier about, defending guilty or innocent people. Here's a man who is responsible for taking the life of another man, right? We can all agree on that. Even he's willing to admit that. But was that justified? And so therefore, am I representing a guilty person? Well, he did something, but I don't view him as guilty. This is obviously the case that involved this gentleman here. I use gentleman very loosely. His name is Michael Fossler. He had assaulted Aaron Spencer's young daughter. He was arrested for that. He was, for whatever reason, out on bail in the middle of the night. Aaron Spencer, this is a nightmare beyond nightmares. I think about this all the time. He hears the dog barking, wakes up, goes to his daughter's room, and she's gone. Middle of the night. He calls 911, tells them my daughter's been abducted, believes he knows who did it, gets in his own car like a hero, tracks this man down, finds his vehicle, tracks him down, and his daughter is in the vehicle with him, pulls a gun on him, tells him to get out of the car, tells him to let his daughter go. The information that I have heard is that Fossler was not letting her go, and that Fossler gets out of the vehicle and even makes a lunge towards Spencer, who then shoots him and kills him. What would my opening statement be? I think it would be something along those lines. I think this is one of those cases where a little indignation on the part of the defense is probably going to go a long way with jurors. That this is a case where not only should we not be standing here talking about whether or not this man is guilty, we should be applauding this man's actions. He saved his daughter's life. We should be handing him keys to the city and throwing a parade in his honor for doing the right thing and being a father and setting an example for other fathers and men, rather than persecuting him because this man's life was taken. Now, listen, I don't care, and I agree with the concept of any person, no matter how evil or bad they are, if they're killed wrongly, something should be done about that. Justice should be blind. But in this case, justice and the prosecution should have realized this is about as righteous a case for self-defense as I have ever seen. And I don't know why they're persecuting this man this way. And I use that term persecuting rather than prosecuting, because that's what it is in my view. And I don't get it. And listen, you guys all know me. You know me to be a person who supports law enforcement and supports prosecutors where I can. And I am trying my best to give them the benefit of the doubt that there is something they know that I don't know. But unless I hear about that quickly, I feel like this is a real miscarriage of justice. I don't think there's going to be a jury. I don't think they can piece together 12 people in that county who are going to convict this man who loves his turkeys of murder because he was defending his own daughter from the man that had already assaulted her. He's lucky he gave him enough time to get out of the car. I think I'd have been shooting bullets from the driver's seat. There's the answer to your question, Farm Girl. I hope that helps. Really frustrating case. Just do not understand it. All right, let's keep it moving here.
Hi, Josh. This is Pam from Michigan. I have a question concerning the Charlie Kirk and, well, basically anyone in this position who has done something as allegedly horrific as what he has done. When there's so much evidence showing that he was the one that did it, through voicemails, witnesses, phone calls, video, photos, everything. What sort of defense can they get? Like, what can they possibly do to help this person or defend this person? Is it just getting him off death row, kind of like the Bryan Kohberger thing? Or what exactly are they going to do defense-wise for him? Or what is the process in this? So just a quick question. I also wanted to just say thank you for having this show on Sundays. I really enjoy the fact that I get to ask questions and everyone gets to ask questions. When you listen to a podcast and submit them, they go by so fast, and now, you don't get a lot of, questions answered, or, certain ones get answered and most don't. So thank you so much for having this show. I really appreciate all the information and I learned so much. So have a great day and look forward to Sunday.
Pam, thank you so much. So touching. Let's put you on the map. Pam from Michigan. There you go. Talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. Horrible case. I think a case that is really affected a lot of people across the country in hugely fundamental ways. But it's also a case that's got some interesting legal aspects to it. Obviously, the man who's been arrested is a man by the name of Tyler Robinson. He's been charged with aggravated murder in Utah, which makes him eligible for the death penalty. And Pam, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this entire case will be focused on what efforts can they make to have the death penalty removed from the table. Because I agree with you. There is a tremendous amount of evidence that we have heard about so far. I'm all for the idea of innocent until proven guilty. So we'll see how much of this evidence they're actually able to prove in court. But I will say from the reports that we've heard, it sounds very convincing and even described by the prosecution as voluminous. And you're right. We're talking about digital evidence, admissions made over text, admissions made to his parents, DNA evidence, ballistic evidence, cell location evidence, GPS location evidence, Discord chats, eyewitnesses, surveillance video. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And I think that as far as the guilt phase of this, it is probably going to be I would never say easy win, but there's going to be a very difficult case for the defense. So I think they will concentrate their efforts. Like you said, they're going to use the Bryan Kohberger case as a blueprint. And you remember in that case, Ann Taylor spent the lion's share of her time leading up to trial trying to challenge the death penalty. She challenged it on Eighth Amendment arguments, saying it's cruel and unusual. I mean, there were arguments being made that like why do we even have the death penalty anymore? And challenges to anything that would remove the death penalty from consideration is what they wanted to do. And that's why I think you saw the plea here in this case. As soon as that death penalty was taken off the table, they were happy to plead in this case, because I don't think, again, they had much of a trial as far as defense arguments were going to go in this case. I don't think that's going to happen in the Tyler Robinson case. I don't think he will be offered something less than the death penalty. I can't imagine it happening. I feel like there is enough kind of fallout too from the Bryan Kohberger case that the prosecutors in this case are probably not going to entertain that. That all being said, Erica Kirk has publicly said that she will leave it up to the state, whatever they do. She has not weighed in on whether or not they should seek the death penalty against the man that murdered her husband. So what are they going to do? They're going to challenge it legally. They're going to say that the aggravated murder, the aggravating circumstances making this aggravated murder and eligible for the death penalty don't apply. That circumstance in this case is that he put other people's lives at jeopardy in the course of committing this murder. The argument being that Charlie Kirk was surrounded by people. There were people on his left, right, behind him, in front of him. Any one of those people could have been put in harm's way. There you see it. But they're going to try to challenge that. And I'm sure that we will see a lot of litigation about that. And then they're also going to try to challenge it, I think, from a mitigation perspective, from a mental health perspective, from saying that he shouldn't be eligible because he suffers from some sort of mental health. I mean, don't worry. We haven't heard about it yet. It's going to happen. Some sort of mental health crisis that he was under that therefore should make him ineligible for the death penalty. And then if it does go to trial, which I think it will, they're going to I think they will put on challenges to the prosecution case during the guilt phase. They're not going to just roll over, but I think they're going to save most of their ammunition for the penalty phase and try to convince jurors, again, from a perhaps mitigation mental health perspective, that he should not be put to death. So great question, Pam. I get that a lot when people are like, well, what do you possibly do with the case this strong? They've got a difficult task, but they've got to do something. And I think we will see kind of the blueprint from Bryan Kohberger. Great question. All right. You guys enjoying this so far? We've got a lot. We've covered a lot. Bryan Kohberger and Aaron Spencer, Jeffrey Spence, Tyler Robinson. A lot of interesting things. All right. Now I lost my place. Where are we here? Hold on. All right.
Hey Josh, this is Amanda, also known as Super Planner Girl on YouTube. I'm calling in from Augusta, Georgia, and I just had a question for you regarding a younger student who might be interested in pursuing a law career. And I'm specifically speaking about my daughter who's in the 9th grade, but hopefully this could apply to someone else as well. I think I remember you saying that you did not know you were going to be a lawyer until I think like later on in your career path or in your education. But I did wonder, now that you are looking back on it or know people, obviously, what sort of things you could suggest as far as extracurriculars to be doing in high school, electives, and then what sort of major she should do in her undergrad. I've heard kind of some differing opinions on that, and I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thanks for what you guys do. I love the show.
Thank you so much, Amanda from Augusta, Georgia. Let's put you on the map. Thank you for the kind words. And congrats to your daughter. She sounds brilliant, and I think you've got a handful if she's already looking towards law school. Here's what I will say, and I'm no college counselor, but if I were giving this advice to my own daughter, and I think it's good advice for your daughter, is I think it's more important to do well and demonstrate that you can excel than it is to pick a particular major or something like that so early on. Here's what I mean. Like, does she need to do extracurriculars that somehow have to do with the law? I don't think so at all. I mean, if she wants to volunteer doing, at an animal shelter or something, as long as it's something she enjoys and excels at, fantastic. As long as she's getting good grades, I don't think it matters as much what she's getting the good grades in. When you get to college, obviously, maybe tailoring things would be helpful. I know a lot of people go into political science when they're thinking about going to law school. I think that's a great kind of foundation for just understanding how our government works. I didn't. I was an English major. Not exactly something I would recommend, but I know people get all sorts of different majors. I mean, people get pre-med majors and then decide medical school is not for them and they go to law school. But I think what law schools are most concerned with is, did you excel at whatever you were pursuing? And it will only be helpful to pursue something like political science that she kind of has a little leg up when she actually does go to law school. But just demonstrating, I think, in college, your ability to handle stressful situations, to handle a workload, and to excel no matter what subject matter that's in, as long as she's enjoying herself and excelling at it. And then one last piece of advice is the LSAT really matters. Prepare for it. Spend the extra few bucks on preparation classes because you really want to nail that. Kaylin says, I had an attorney recommend English for undergrad to refine writing skills and learn about storytelling. I think, I think that a lot of people go into English, history, political science. Jen H says, my friend who became a lawyer said the debate team helped her a lot to learn how to argue a topic. You know, I think law school is not expecting, listen, I encourage that too, as long as you enjoy debate team and excel at debate team. But I guess going into debate team and hating it and not doing well at it is not going to be helpful. But if you go into some other, avocation that's not exactly law school aligned, but you excel at it, I think that might mean more to them. Study anything that bolsters critical thinking skills. Like I said, I think law schools are looking for people who excel, who can handle stressful situations. They're going to make you a lawyer. They're going to teach you the law. So I don't think they expect you to come in understanding it. But it's competitive stuff. So good luck to her. God bless Amanda in your adventure moving forward. And thank you so much for the call. All right, let's keep it rolling.
Hey, it's Alicia K. Mayo, Humboldt, Tennessee. Happy Sunday, Joshua, Tiffany, Kaylin, mods, crew, chat, everyone. Joshua, I have a question. If a defendant is declared indigent and there's crowdsourcing and or GoFundMe, at what point in time or what amount of money would they no longer be considered indigent? Look forward to your answers as always. Hope everyone has a great Sunday fun day. And by the way, excellent case notes and excellent work, Kaylin, on the Huraman case. All right. Y'all have a great Sunday fun day. Thanks. Bye.
Alicia K. Mayo. Love you. Love to hear from you. Always brings a smile to my face. Calling from Humboldt, Tennessee. First of all, thank you so much for the kind words about the Huraman case notes. I will take this opportunity to shamelessly plug that episode that we did. Put a lot of work into it. Kaylin put a tremendous amount of work into it, and I'm incredibly proud of it. I watched the first 5 minutes of it with a colleague just recently, and they were blown away with the quality of it. They kept on asking me, how many people did you have working on this? And I was like, 3, and really just 1. And we're working with, a shoelace and Scotch tape budget, but put a lot of work into it. We're very proud of it. You guys should check it out. If you haven't already, it's on our website or on the YouTube channel. There's the link. And if you want to know about this case and you feel like you need a little catching up and you want to know the ins and outs of how the investigation developed and where things stand now, I think that this is about as good of a resource as you're going to find. So thank you, AKM, for highlighting that for all of us. To your question, love this question. Great question. What is the cutoff for indigent? Well, I'll tell you, here in LA, there is no fixed income threshold. In other words, it's not like, well, if you make X amount of dollars per year or over, you don't qualify. But if you make under that, then you do qualify. it comes down to kind of a holistic understanding of that person's financial situation. And they do ask these questions, by the way. It's not like any person can walk in and be like, I need a public defender. They have to be qualified. And, we could go into how stringent are those examinations into whether or not somebody qualifies or not. But they consider things like their income, but also their debt. You can make a ton of money, but you're in 10 times as much debt. Your assets, how many dependents you have. All of these are to get the idea of, can you actually go afford an attorney? Because even if you walk in with a nice suit, but you've got debt up to your ears, several dependents, and you just don't have any money for a lawyer, that's not a situation that we want you to be put in. So the government will provide you one. And the question, again, though, just to keep in mind, comes down to what is the financial situation of the accused, not their family. So you'll see situations where a kid, a young person might have wealthy parents and they qualify, though, for the public defender because they themselves don't have any money. And that is obviously when the wealthy parents don't want to go get them an attorney. But that's who they're analyzing, is the financial situation of the defendant, not of their family. One other thing this made me think of is these GoFundMe situations. I've always thought, well, I hope that money is going towards their legal fees and not straight into their pocket. And I looked into this, and GoFundMe actually has, they call it their guarantee, their GoFundMe guarantee. They actually have a mechanism to determine that if the funds are either being misused or used fraudulently by the fundraiser, the person asking for the GoFundMe funds, they'll refund it. They'll take the money away and they'll refund it back to everybody. So I was glad to hear that. I don't know how often it happens with it, but I was glad to hear that it exists. Great question, though. Alicia K. Mayo, appreciate you. T. Suze, I've heard of you, says, great job on case notes, Kaylin. Happy birthday to Best Nancy. Happy birthday, Best Nancy. Glad to hear that. Yeah, and go watch the case notes, everybody. After you tell Best Nancy happy birthday, then go watch the case notes. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Courtroom Confidential. Missed you guys. Happy Sunday fun day. The gang is back together, or the band is back together, as they say. So this Laken Snelling has really got me upset. And I know somebody's got to be her defense attorney. And so I'm trying to think. So Josh, if we had to defend her, first thing that we would do would be to somehow try to get those statements from the roommates and her statement, try to get that to be, not allowed in trial. So how would we go about doing that? Is there any rule in which that's going to get ruled out? Her statements and the roommate statements. That's my question. I don't think we would defend her, but just in case we did. Thank you.
Sonia, so good to hear from you from Chicago, Illinois, putting you on the map. Great question, and you're thinking like a lawyer, and I love it. Laken Snelling is the young lady from Kentucky. She's actually not from there originally. I think she's actually from Tennessee, but she was going to the University of Kentucky. She was a cheerleader. There you see her. We now know that she was pregnant and hiding that pregnancy, and likely gave birth to a live child, according to some of the evidence that we're hearing. And that baby, that infant, was found wrapped in a towel inside of her closet. So what Sonia is asking is, she made some statements. She made some statements to hospital staff that day, which are very incriminating. To officers, she said at one point that she heard the baby whimpering. and that she, quote unquote, thought it might be alive. But then at another point, she says that she lost consciousness and woke up. She was on top of the baby and the baby was blue. And she thought that the baby was not alive. The crucial thing here is obviously going to come down to whether or not that baby was born alive and whether or not she knew that baby was alive. And if she did, and that baby was born alive, we could very well be looking at murder charges, and that this case could get real serious real quick. I want to give a shout out to, I believe it was SNEMAC, in a case, I think we were discussing this on Wednesday. I want to get this right. I hope I'm right. And SNEMAC made a comment because I was talking about how forensically could they determine whether or not that baby was born alive. And she pointed out that doctors can actually tell there's physiological changes in the infant that take place. You know, when the baby's in utero, it's getting oxygen and everything else through the umbilical cord. But when that baby's lungs take a breath of air for the very first time after being born, physiological changes take place. Tisu says it. Yes, it was SNEMAC. Thank you, SNEMAC, for this. I thought this was fascinating that that they can tell immediately, like an autopsy performed on that baby will tell you if that baby took a breath of air. So if that is true, I think that they may be looking at murder charges here. So she has waived prelim and it's going to the grand jury. So the grand jury will hear all of this evidence or whatever exists and make a determination about what charges to bring. But right now she's only been arrested for kind of like abuse of a corpse, concealing a pregnancy type charges, and not murder. But to your question, Sonia, it's an excellent question. What do you do about those statements that she made to hospital staff? What do you do about the statements that her roommates said that she made and the things that they saw? Not much. As a defense attorney, those are going to be really detrimental, really impactful, really devastating to her case, especially those statements that she herself made to hospital staff, saying that the baby whimpered, that she thought it might have been alive, because one hearsay exception that is just kind of roundly accepted with very little argument to ever not allow it is anything that comes out of the defendant's mouth under the party opponent exception to hearsay. So it's just open game for the prosecution. Anything that defendant may have ever said in the past comes in. It really would only come down to, you know, any kind of reliability from the person who's testifying to it, or, you know, if there's a double hearsay element involved, you know, you've got the officer testifying to what the nurse said that she said. Now you've got a problem. But if you're able to call that nurse that she made those statements directly to, you're going to get that in. And the same goes for the roommates. If the roommates are testifying to something she said, as long as those roommates are in court, they can testify to it. So it's a very, very sad, tragic case. I don't know anything about this girl's background. I don't know what was going through her mind or what was going on in her life, but it's really sad that this is where we land, and that she may be looking at going to prison, and she may be looking at going to prison for a long time. We shall see. You know, stay tuned for developments on that case. Thank you so much, Sonia. All right. What am I doing here? Let's keep it moving.
Hello, CC crew and all. This is Madeline. I'm calling from Denver, but I have a question actually surrounding my hometown of Seattle. You know, the Pacific Northwest seems to have an abundance of serial killers and killers in general, so I kind of grew up around a lot of crime news. My specific thought today is about the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. He was convicted of 48 murders of sex workers initially, and then a 49th victim was tacked on a couple years later. He also claimed to have committed like a lot more murders. But the thing I found interesting in my research was that his plea agreement said that he would have to plead guilty to all future cases that had any evidence against him. how does that work? Is that legal? Is that common? I guess I'm just kind of confused by that, like, clause or caveat in his plea agreement. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to hearing from everyone and seeing you all in the chat.
Madeline from Denver, Colorado. Thank you so much for calling. I think you make an excellent observation about something's in the water in the Pacific Northwest. You had Gary Ridgway, who we're talking about. Ted Bundy operated there for many years, and then he went down to Florida. I don't know what it is. I would love to hear if there's actually been a study on that, or somebody can theorize on that. Maybe it's just the idea of too much rain all year long gets people in a murderous mood. But Gary Ridgway is about one of the most horrific monsters you're ever going to hear about. He was called the Green River Killer. He operated in the late 70s, early 80s. And yeah, in 2003, he pled guilty to 48 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. In Washington at that time, they did have the death penalty. And so the deal was that he would plead guilty to all of these murders that they had tied to him in some way or another, in exchange for the death penalty being taken off the table. Interestingly, the death penalty was abolished in Washington in 2023. But you make the point, and Madeline, I had not heard of this, so this was very interesting to me. The part of the plea deal included that he would plead guilty to any and all future cases in King County where his confession could be corroborated by reliable evidence. And in fact, that happened. In 2011, they found, or actually they were able to link the remains of 20-year-old Rebecca Marrero, who disappeared in 1982 and was murdered in 1982, they believe, to him through DNA. Now, interestingly, Ridgway confessed to her murder in 2003, but they didn't accept his plea because they didn't have other corroborating evidence, which I thought was really admirable of the prosecution, that they don't want, with the situation they wanted to avoid was just every unsolved crime having this man admit to it, because then you're going to have a bunch of people who are, they're not looking for, right? If they've got unsolved crimes and they've got this man admitting to it where he didn't commit that murder, now you've got a murderer out there that nobody's looking for. So they wanted to avoid that, and realizing the huge numbers we're talking about, 48, now 49 people he's admitted to killing. That is a tremendous amount. They didn't want this to turn into one of those situations. So they actually didn't let him plead to her murder until they were able to link him to it in 2011 through advances in DNA. And then he did plead to her murder. I also have a note here that in 2023, there was another case called her remains had been referred to as Bone 17. We now know her to be Lori Ann Raspotnik, who was 15 at the time in 1982 when she disappeared and was murdered. And that is another case that I think they're working on trying to tie to him, because her body was disposed of in an area where he had admitted disposing bodies of. And they want to, I believe, tie it to him. But to your question, Madeline, I'm trying to think of a legal reason why it would not be acceptable. I think there's arguments to be made that you cannot have somebody agree to do things in the future that are contingent upon things outside of their control, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, would he be breaching if he decided he's not going to admit to something, even if they believe they've linked him to it? He may say, well, I didn't do that anyways. Would he then be breaching his plea agreement? And could they say, well, now we're going to pursue the death penalty? In other words, I see problems on the horizon. Here's the interesting thing, though. I don't think we'll ever get an official judge to rule on this issue because it is so rare. It is so rare for us to find a serial killer this prolific who's willing to plead, and then there to be unsolved crimes that we feel like he's also good for, that we want him to plead to. So in other words, this exact plea deal and clause, I don't think you're ever going to see again. And then he would have to violate it, or the prosecution would have to try to go back on it for there to be even litigation created for the Supreme Court or whoever else to weigh in on it. In other words, even if this is illegal, I'm saying, even if this question were presented to the Supreme Court and they said that's illegal, you can't make somebody plead to future circumstances, that question's never going to come before them unless somebody in this deal challenges it, and he's not going to challenge it because he's happily sitting in prison, not on death row. And the state of Washington's never going to pursue death row against him. And even if he didn't plead to some future crime, I don't think it's going to create litigation that would put it in that question in front of the Supreme Court. I hope that wasn't too convoluted. I hope you guys understood where I was going with all of that. But it's a very interesting question, Madeline, that we'll probably never get a absolute answer to. All right, I've confused myself. Fala, damn it. Thank you so much for the gift of 5 memberships. Appreciate you and all your generosity, and always good to hear from you. All right, where are we at here? I need to catch my breath.
Hi, Josh. This is Alyssa calling from Jackson, Mississippi. I just had a question about jurisdiction for the shooting that took place on Sunday at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints building in Grand Blanc, Michigan. They had called in the FBI and the ATF really quickly, it seemed. And I know the FBI can be called in if they're invited by the local police department or local law enforcement. In this case, they had said in a press conference on Sunday evening that the ATF was there because they are the official federal arson investigators. The building had been set on fire after the shooting occurred. And so the ATF was conducting the official arson investigation. And I was just wondering why it would be a federal arson investigation instead of a local arson investigation, or if there was some reason that it was federal as opposed to local. Curious what insights, if any, you could offer. Thanks.
Alyssa from Jackson, Mississippi. Let's put you on the map. And what a great question. Yeah, this was a tragedy of a case. Out of Grand Blanc, Michigan. You may have seen this news break over the week. A man that has been identified now as Thomas Jacob Sanford opened up fire on a church for Latter-day Saints and then lit the church on fire. I remember that when it was first being reported, there were people who were unaccounted for, and they thought that they might have found more bodies inside of the church. Really, really awful case. But yes, immediately FBI, ATF, who's also a federal agency, got involved. They were involved in the arson investigation. And Alyssa brings this up. It's a question that comes up quite a bit. Like, when do they get involved? When don't they get involved? Is it something that's requested? Is it something where they have to get involved in certain situations? And it's a kind of a question that's a little bit above my pay grade, but I am not bothered by that because I can always phone a friend.
Well, hi, Alyssa, and thanks so much for that question. You know, this one is really interesting. I'm calling in actually from Serbia. So, Josh, thanks for the invitation. The reason the ATF was invited into this investigation, I believe, is twofold. Number one, that there is an arson investigation. There were also concerns about whether there were some type of explosive devices planted inside of that Latter-day Saint church. So that's one primary reason. And yes, they're experts at investigating arson. Now, the second reason that the feds have been pulled in my opinion, is the fact that this may be classified as a hate crime, and the federal hate crime statutes are going to be really powerful and something that they would want to pursue. Finally, the final reason, in my opinion, is law enforcement is finally getting better at reaching out to their federal partners for support, because the feds can bring a whole lot more resource to the table than they might have locally. Hey, thanks for that question.
Love that, man. That is Mike King from Profiling Evil. If you are not subscribed to him and you're not following him, do yourself a favor and go subscribe and follow him now. He's fantastic. He's got a background, a tremendous experience in law enforcement. I love hearing him dive into some of these cases. I've been on his channel. He's been on mine. In fact, we have a conversation. One of our conversation series is with Mike King. So if you want to learn more about his background, please go check it out. There's the link to it. He'd appreciate a follow on that, I'm sure. And this is how great this guy is. I texted Mike and I said, hey, buddy, we do this thing on Sundays. It'd be fun if you'd record a selfie. I think everybody would enjoy it. I think the question's right up your alley. Would you mind doing this for me? And he says, hey, my friend, good to hear from you. I'm in Serbia. I said, actually, this is how it happened. I texted him and I said, hey, do you got a minute? And he said, hey, my friend, good to hear from you. I'm in Serbia. And I should have said, have a wonderful trip. But instead, because I'm a maniac, I said, oh, that's great. Hey, would you mind doing this thing for me on Sunday? And he said, anything for you. So he recorded that from Serbia and then sent us this picture. I think this is what he was looking at when he was recording that video. Serbia sounds incredible. Everybody I know who's been there is like, you got to go. And they've got these ancient castles and it's like the best of Europe, but super cheap. So thank you guys to Mike King. Send him some love next time. Go over there to his channel, send him some juice boxes, tell him how much we appreciate him. Yeah, we need to put Serbia on the map. Appreciate him. And there's the answer to your question, Alyssa. I think that is absolutely the right reason, is that they're involved because it could have been a hate crime. It could have been terrorism. It could have been anything. So immediately they're going to kind of respond. And then they've got the best resources and the money and everything else to investigate these things and all of the experts. And I also agree with Mike that it does seem like we're past those days of local law enforcement not wanting the feds to come in and step all over their case. Instead, we're at a point where they're like, please give us the resources, give us the investigative tools, help us to solve this. I feel like you're seeing that much more. So great question, Alyssa, and I appreciate you calling in from Jackson, Mississippi. Oh, boy. We're at that point, everybody. We're getting down to the last couple of questions here. I hope you've had a good time. I really have. I feel like we've covered a lot of territory and had a lot of great questions. All right. Here's the last couple of questions to bring us home.
Hi, Joshua and crew. My name is Amy. I'm calling from Springfield, Virginia. I want to say thank you, first of all, to your amazing crew and you as well. I thoroughly enjoy your podcasts. They are the highlight of my week. I watch all of them, usually live, and I'm just really grateful for the way you share your information. I'm calling specifically about two different cases. The first one is Bryan Kohberger. I watched a podcast with Matt Murphy, the former prosecutor from California, and he was talking about how, based on the structure of the plea deal and the way the law is structured in Idaho, that Bryan Kohberger could be eligible for parole in 40 years. I'm hoping that that's not accurate. I'm hoping that's just old information that was shared and then like proven to not be true. But I wanted to find out from you. You've done a lot on this case, and I know you know the law in Idaho pretty well. You've done a lot of research. So I just wanted to find out from you if that's accurate, because that's really, really super concerning if it is. It makes me even more upset about the plea deal, but that's neither here nor there. The second reason I was calling is because I wanted to know if you had ever heard about or covered anything on the flight attendant murders out of Texas back in the 70s. I didn't know about them, and I just wanted to know if you knew about them and what your thought was. Have a great day and a great week.
Amy, thank you so much for the wonderful question. Calling from Springfield, Virginia. Let's put you on the map. This is interesting. Matt Murphy, great guy, good friend of mine, brilliant attorney. He was a prosecutor at the DA's office in Orange County, right next door to LA County when I was a prosecutor in LA County. But he's the real deal. I mean, he's handled huge, big murder cases, stuff that you've all heard of, stuff that they create Dateline episodes about. Not to mention, he's a super nice guy, incredibly generous with his time. And he's also got a book. I should plug his book. Oh, it's upstairs. But it's called The Book of Murder. We'll try to find a link for that. You guys should go check it out. It's excellent. Excellent book about a lot of the cases that he worked on. Love the guy. That being said, I have no idea what he's talking about here. I have no idea what he's talking about here. I think it's either he was talking before the plea deal actually came out and it was the idea of what could happen, or I think he was discussing the way that the law works in Idaho and something got lost in translation. But to put everybody's fears at rest, there's no chance of him being eligible for parole after 40 years. Here's how it breaks down, okay? This is Idaho Penal Code Section 18-4004. That is the degrees of murder and the exposure on those cases, okay? In Idaho, for second-degree murder, you're looking at a minimum of 10 and a maximum of fixed life, okay? Meaning life without parole. That's what they call life without parole. In Idaho, they call it fixed life. It's fixed at your actual life. For first-degree murder, you're looking at a minimum of 10 and a maximum of the death penalty, okay? So he was charged with first-degree murder. Therefore, the death penalty can be on the table. If there are no aggravating circumstances on the first-degree murder, then you're looking at a minimum of 10 years before you are, quote unquote, eligible for parole. But if aggravating circumstances do exist and are found to be true, then you're never looking at parole. Then your options are only life without parole or fixed life or the death penalty. Okay. That's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. What does it mean? What it means is if in Idaho you are convicted of first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances being found to be true, your only options are fixed life or the death penalty. He was sentenced to 4 counts of fixed life to run consecutively to each other. He is not eligible for parole, even according to their own sentencing scheme. But it gets confusing because when you look at the exposures in Idaho, it says things like 10 to life or 10 to the death penalty. What that means is if you're convicted in Idaho of first-degree murder, but an aggravating circumstance was not found to be true, let's say they go to trial and multiple murder wasn't found to be true by the jury, then you are looking at something where the judge can sentence that person to something in between. And a judge could say, well, I'm giving you 50 to life. Minimum I can give you is 10, but I'm giving you 50 to life. But because he pled guilty, and you remember the judge asking him questions like, these were murders, multiple murders committed at the same time. Multiple murder is an aggravating factor. This was a murder committed during the course of a residential burglary. That is an aggravating factor. Those both being found true because he pled to them automatically makes him ineligible for parole. And then he waived his right to appeal any of this, so he's never looking at getting out. And I hope that clears up everything. He has been sentenced to 4 counts of fixed life without parole, as we might call it, to run consecutively. And you can tell Matt I said so. Other question, the flight attendant murders. Never heard of this one. Wanted to share it with everybody. There is a docuseries out about it. I found it on, you can find it on Amazon Prime. You can find it on Apple movies. I'm sure it's available other places. I haven't watched it yet. I think I'm going to try to check it out. What I did learn kind of just from the summaries of it is that it sounds like this is a theory about some murders of flight attendants that took place in Texas that they the theory behind this, the hypothesis behind this docuseries is that they may have been connected and may have been committed by the same person. So I haven't seen it. I'll check it out. If you have seen it, Amy, or anybody, let me know if it's good, because I'm always looking for a new good docuseries to watch. So let me know. Thank you so much, Amy. All right, here it is, bringing us home. Round of applause. The final question of the week.
Hello, Josh. This is Katie in Nantwich in England. My question this week is about the grand jury. We don't have grand juries in the UK, and I'm just wondering why you have them in the US. How much evidence do they get to review? Because it seems to be that they are the people who determine whether somebody goes to trial. So I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit about their role. Thank you. Bye.
Katie from Nantwich, England. Let's put you on the map there. Where is it? This one? That one? Interesting. Is that right near Wales? Am I getting my geography right? Thank you so much, Katie, for calling in. I think I am right. I don't know. I'm probably wrong. You ask about grand juries. Where do they come from? You don't have them in England. Well, Katie, answer is we got them from you. It actually was established first in 1215 in a document called the Magna Carta, signed by King John, that allowed for the first time written into law the inquiry into alleged crimes by juries of presentment. And that's essentially what the concept boils down to. There are two types of juries. There is a trial jury or a petite jury, and there's a grand jury or an indictment jury. The grand jury, well, let me give you a little bit more of the history. So, flash forward from 1215 to 1776, the United States decides that they want to make their own laws. They come out with the Constitution. They say we need to add some things to this Constitution. They add some amendments. They get to the fifth one, and they take some inspiration from the Magna Carta, and they come up with the Fifth Amendment. Here's the Fifth Amendment, and I want you guys to read it in its entirety because I think it's really interesting, because these amendments, we talk so much about them, and many of them are just about a sentence or two long. It says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, where in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy. Ever heard of that? Or life or limb. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Ever heard of that? Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. Ever heard of that? Of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So out of this one amendment here, we've got due process, double jeopardy, the right to not compelled to testify against yourself, and the concept of the grand jury. And what we have decided in years of criminal jurisprudence and common law since then is that really you need a probable cause determination. We will not allow you to be held to even go to trial unless a judge or independent body has determined that there's enough evidence for probable cause to hold you to answer, not beyond a reasonable doubt. We're not trying to ask a judge or grand jury to make that determination early on. We want the trial jury to make that determination about beyond a reasonable doubt. But early on, before we even just hold you in jail waiting for trial, we need to, because if you read it there, no person shall be held to answer, not convicted, but even held to answer for an offense unless there's been some sort of presentment to a grand jury. So the grand jury is another mechanism for a probable cause determination. It is used federally quite often, in some jurisdictions all the time, in other jurisdictions not so much. Where I practice in California, it's not used all that much. Usually we go to what's called a preliminary hearing, which does the same function of determining probable cause, but does it in a little different way. Some cases are brought to grand jury, usually very complex cases, usually have very high profile cases that you might want to avoid a preliminary hearing. And why is that? Well, the grand jury is unique in some respects in that one, it's only conducted by the prosecution. Only the prosecution is presenting evidence to the grand jury. The defense is not only not entitled to be there, but oftentimes is even unaware of its taking place. So the prosecutor has to wear, to some extent, two hats and present some exculpatory evidence, if it exists, to the grand jury so that the grand jury is making a balanced decision about indictment. And that's all they're doing. They're not deciding guilt. They're just deciding indictment. Is there probable cause, which is a very low standard, to believe that this person should answer to trial for this crime that they're alleged to have committed? The other thing that the grand jury is unique about is it can be used for investigation, not even for indictment. Sometimes they will use a grand jury to put people's testimony on the record, to help them answer a question about, do they have enough evidence to proceed forward, but not actually charge someone? Really interesting in those respects. And also, a grand jury is entirely secret, and nobody knows when they're convening, and nobody knows when they're even convening about. I will tell you, there are cases that are high profile that I cannot tell you about because I don't want to lose my bar card, that are high profile, that have gone in front of the grand jury many times, that if these people were ever indicted, you would be shocked. Or if the crime was ever, quote unquote, solved, you would be shocked. And they're all private because they have evidence and they're presenting it to the grand jury, but they just don't have enough yet to, they feel, either bring an indictment or successfully pursue a prosecution in such a high profile case. But those cases do exist. Sorry to tease you with all of that, but great question to go out on. Thank you so much, Katie from Nantwich, England. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Sit tight for just a few minutes. I got some announcements for you. First of all, Super Planner Girl, Amanda. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, she listened too. Your daughter listened too. Hello to her and tell her good luck and call me when she graduates law school. Maybe I'll hire her. All right. Go to thecourtroomconfidential.com if you want to participate in next Sunday's Sunday Fun Day. You click on leave us a message and you can leave us a question, true crime related, ongoing case, law related, whatever it is. Please leave us a message at thecourtroomconfidential.com and keep them coming, everybody. We love hearing from you. If you have seen people received gifts in membership, you've seen people talk about membership, we really put a lot of work into our membership program here. And so the other place you can go is to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on become a member to learn about all of the benefits and how you can become a member. And finally, go to our shop. What am I wearing today? If you're interested in all of these beautiful colors and designs that we have from the Courtroom Confidential shop, go to the Courtroom Confidential for that. Frosted blueberry. I don't know about that one. Frosted blueberry. What is it, Tiff? What am I wearing? Love you all. Love this community, says Seashell. Plum tuckered. Oh, that's clever, therapist, you know. Plum tuckered out. Pez purple, I see. Purple rain. Purple paint law. Lavender snow, says Beth Sowell. What is it, Tiff? Sugar plum fairy. Violet? Boo. Not interesting. We need to have another remember we did that contest to name the shirt? We should do that again. That was fun. All right. What did you miss this Saturday? Well, we did something that we haven't done. It is Violet. We did something that we've never done before, and that's we did our weekly roundup live. And I think it went well. And I think we want to try it again. So check it out. Let us know what you think of it. It's up right now on the channel. We did it yesterday. at kind of a bizarre time that we don't usually, because I was traveling. I've been in New York all this week, and I landed yesterday, got off the plane, came home, showered real quick, and jumped on the live for the weekly roundup. But check it out. We talked about Bryan Kohberger and David and Diddy and Tyler Robinson and all of the cases that happened this week. Please check it out. It's up on our channel now. Stay tuned. This week, Monday, we're doing our Monday night special True Crime Docket, coming to you live, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. A lot of cases coming up this week. You see a few of them there, Corey Richens and Brian Walsh. Check it out live tomorrow. Oh, Becky B says the live weekly roundup was great. Thanks. Well, there you go. Listen to Becky B, everybody, and go check it out if you haven't already. On Wednesday, we are doing our Wednesday night live, and we have a special guest for you. We're excited about this, brand new to our channel. That is Dr. Patrice Berry, whose channel is called Dr. Patrice Berry Psychologist Reacts. I'm really looking forward to it because I want to talk to her about a bunch of cases, but in particular, we're going to get into this Ruth Miller case about the difference between religious delusion, insanity, murder. How does that all work out in somebody's head? We're also going to talk about, maybe cases like David and some other stuff. I'm going to really use her time and pick her brain, and I'm looking forward to that. So check that out this Wednesday, live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. It sounds like a lot of you are already fans of her. And then finally, Friday, we're going to do it again. Weekly Roundup live. We're doing it at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. So no weekly roundup to be recorded and released at a premiere on Saturday. I know we're changing up the schedule, but bear with me. I think this is going to be, everybody's going to love it. 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. This Friday, we will do our weekly roundup live again, and we're going to fine tune it, and you guys are going to love it. So be there this Friday. And then finally, coming up later this month, October 20th, is the beginning of the Brian Walsh trial, and we are going to be covering that gavel to gavel on our sister channel, Courtroom Confidential live trial. So if you're not subscribed over there, do it now. Set your notifications so you don't miss anything. But that is where the CC crew will be watching the Brian Walsh channel starting October 20th. Also, have you noticed that during all of our lives, we don't run any ads? And that's on purpose, and that's something that we want to continue to do. And the way that we can do that is through sponsors. And we'd like to share with you our first sponsor, which is a company we're very excited about named Aura. If you have dealt with robocalls or spam emails or leaked passwords, and you're concerned about any of these things, Aura is your all-in-one digital security platform. They will give you alerts. They will give you a VPN, antivirus, password manager, ID theft insurance, US-based support, and special to Courtroom Confidential listeners, a deal that you can get your first 14 days for free. So scan that QR code or just go to aura.com/courtroom confidential. Make sure that you enter it that way so that you can get your 14-day free trial. It's free. It's a product I use. It's a great product, and it's also a great way to support the show. So please check it out. Finally, CrimeCon here in the US is coming up next year in Las Vegas, May 29th through the 31st of 2026. And we're giving you a discount for that too. So 10% off if you enter the word courtroom, all in caps, all one word, at checkout for 10% off. Hope to see you there. We're definitely going to be there. We're excited. We're already looking forward to it. So Tiff, get ready. We're going to, sounds like we're going to Vegas and England twice next year, and then maybe on a cruise. I don't know. Thank you so much to Afton, Sonia, Kathy, and therapists, for being our mods and taking care of all of these, our crazy crew here, and keeping us all in line. Thank you so much for Kaylin, for everything that you do, the hard work. And Tiffany, as always, thank you for putting up with me and for being the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you guys for spending your Sunday with us. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, everybody.